It's Tuesday, July 21st, and this is now on HNN.
Our teachers are scared. They're afraid right now of going back into the classroom.
The governor says reopening Hawaii's public schools is safe and necessary.
Going to school will be a change for all of us.
It is ludicrous to think that now, when the fire is even hotter, when the buildings are really burning, that we would take our children out of these protective bubbles that we've created.
As coronavirus cases surge in parts of the country, the debate over whether or not to open schools continues. I'm Chris Martinez with what teachers in Florida are doing to try to keep their schools closed.
The screening is not consistent and it's not being thorough enough.
Investigators are telling us some visitors have found loopholes to skip out on quarantine rules. Coming up on This Is Now. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for watching This Is Now. We've got so much news to get to today, including a press conference we're waiting for from the teachers union, where we expect them to be urging the state to delay the return of students to campuses. But first, we got some brand new numbers from the Department of Health.
Hey everyone, health officials are reporting 25 new COVID-19 cases today. 21 patients are on Oahu and 4 are on Maui. That brings the statewide total to 1,418, and more than 70% of patients have recovered from their symptoms. Now back to the debate over bringing teachers and students back to class. Governor Ige says the August 4th reopening of schools is one of the reasons he decided to push back the restart of tourism to September. Despite the fears of many parents and teachers, officials say it's a major part of moving the community forward.
There's still many unanswered questions, but we know that in response to the question of whether we need to reopen the schools or not, the answer is yes.
Education officials say the first 2 weeks of school will be heavily focused on getting students and teachers used to a hybrid model of learning, as well as building their new relationships.
If we have to go into distance learning again, it's going to be really important for the students and the teachers to know one another.
Schools will be using different models to keep the daily population at each campus low, and the DOE says it will be using smaller class sizes, face coverings, and social distancing. Schools will also try to keep students with the same people as much as possible throughout the day, which they call school bubbles.
As students and adults come into the building, there are visual checks and also question protocols that our staff are going to be using.
When asked what's the protocol if a student or faculty member tests positive for COVID-19, the school superintendent says they will isolate the person, then notify the family and the health department.
The Department of Health looks at contact tracing and looking at whether the impact potentially is class-wise, building-wide, region-wide, and they provide us guidance around some next steps if necessary to shut down a class, whether it's a school or whether it's a set of schools.
All right, we're still awaiting that press conference any moment now, but we have a little bit more local school news to talk about, right?
That's right. The Hawaii High School Athletic Association is cracking down on unsanctioned pandemic workouts. With campuses closed, some coaches have been holding workouts in public parks and other facilities. The association ruled that face-to-face contact between players and coaches for any reason is now off limits until August 18th. After that, individual leagues will determine workout restrictions, and coaches who break the rules could be suspended for the entire season.
And just right now, that press conference is getting underway with the HSTA. Let me bring up our audio here, and we'll bring it right to you.
Yep, we are going to be hearing from HSTA President Corey Rosenlee. Let's listen in.
Practices and promises made by the DOE that would occur before our schools began. Since that MOU, we have asked the DOE multiple times for answers to our questions and still have not gotten those answers. Yet we plan on opening our schools shortly. Given these unanswered questions, and that teachers are supposed to report soon, HSDA has no confidence that our schools are ready, our school buildings are ready to open for our students. HSDA is asking the Board of Education and the state of Hawaii to delay the opening of school buildings to our students. Our schools need more time to be able to create a healthy environment for our students and our teachers. Opening our schools quickly is not something we should do in a pandemic. What is the rush? While the HSTA has continued to work with the DOE in good faith, there are still questions that we have. First of all, when will the state of Hawaii's Department of Health provide written guidance on the reopening of school buildings, which the DOE agreed to in our MOU? Just this week, Health Director Bruce Anderson told lawmakers that they still haven't even created a committee on this issue, yet they want to open our schools. Next question, what options are available to families seeking 100% distance learning options for their children? The department has provided no guidance for K-5 students to be able to access 100% distance learning options. Many parents, when they have inquired with their schools, have been told no options of what they can do. And the DOE still has not advertised this option to parents. There are no clear protocols when it comes to face mask use. And what we've heard from teachers is that it runs the gamut across the state, where some schools are going to require it and others are not going to discipline students for not having it on. HSDA believes that face masks must be worn, and that must be enforced on our campuses. One of the big questions that still has not been answered is, what happens to the students and adults on a school campus if a student, teacher, or other school employee, or one of their household members tests positive for COVID-19?
And that is HSTA President Corey Rosenlee listing off the many concerns that teachers have about returning to campus on August 4th. Again, HSTA is urging the state to delay the August 4th reopening of schools. We'll have much more on this on our evening newscast starting at 5 o'clock tonight.
Meanwhile, can you believe it's been 4 months since we put into effect the state quarantine for out-of-state visitors? And with that, now investigators are saying many people are taking advantage of loopholes in the rules. Mahealani Richardson brings us today's Talker story.
Despite recent high-profile arrests for violating quarantine, Mel Raposo, special investigator for the Kauai County Prosecutor's Office, says others are getting through by hopping islands on inter-island flights.
The screening is not consistent and it's not being thorough enough. So a lot of these people that are coming through with a connecting boarding pass.
The other loophole, Raposo says owners of residential rentals are skirting the law to rent to visitors.
These guys are writing the 180-day leases, letting the people come in for a week or two, and then canceling the lease. I mean, it's just pathetic and it's so frustrating. And I'm just having a hard time believing these people all fulfilled 14 days of quarantine.
Enforcement of the quarantine is always going to be a challenge.
The state's attorney general says 182 people have been arrested by state and county law enforcement, and they've contacted more than 27,000 travelers since the quarantine order started late March.
But what I do want to reassure people is that we are aware of the need to enforce, and we have set up systems to enforce, not just at the airports, so that when people come through, they are appropriately screened.
Investigators also do random checks.
My agents go knock on doors, make phone calls, and check to make sure that the people are there.
With the travel quarantine now extended to September 1st, Raposo says law enforcement has more time to work out the kinks.
Because it's going to be devastating, I think, if we don't lock down these loopholes now.
All right, Mahealani is here to go a little bit deeper on this story. Thank you for coming into the This Is Now set, Mahea.
Aloha, Jonathan.
Yeah, absolutely. So go ahead and explain to us how those loopholes are happening. What do you mean by they're hopping inter-island?
So Mel Raposo, who's that special investigator with the Hawaii County Prosecutor's Office, he's also a former councilman and a Kauai police officer. He said he just recently heard of a case, and this is his biggest concern, is that when people are hopping inner islands. So he just recently had a case where 2 roommates came from Arizona, which is a hotbed of cases right now. They went from Arizona to Honolulu, and then they went to Lihue, and as they were going through the checkpoint, one roommate said that they were from Arizona. The other roommate said that they were from Honolulu. So the roommate that said he was from Honolulu got through without any quarantine, but the roommate who said he was from Arizona had to go through the quarantine. So he says that's just one example of people really abusing the system to get through these checkpoints. And then I asked, wait a minute, what about, don't they have to check their ID and their address? And of course, that's part of the check process, but he said that there is a lot of human error.
And in that piece we heard you mention that some people are even renting long-term leases and then canceling them. How's that working?
Right, and so this is where this falls on the local residents. So on Kauai, for example, Mel Raposo said that you are allowed to have a long-term lease of 180 days or more. But what's happening is these visitors are coming in, they stay there for a week or two, and then they just break the lease. The homeowner or the owner of the rental then destroys the lease after that. So that allows them illegally to continually rent to people with these short-term leases. So that is an illegal vacation rental.
And then real quickly, we've heard a lot about these citizen patrols. They've started Facebook groups in an attempt to stop the breakers, the quarantine breakers. What do the official investigators think about that tactic?
Well, one of the big groups is Hawaii Quarantine Kapu Breakers, which is run by Angela Keene, and they are helping law enforcement because they're basically tracking these people down on social media. Now, one thing that law enforcement has said is that they do not want any vigilantes out there. So what they want people to do is that if you know of a quarantine violator, a potential violator, call police, call 911, the non-emergency line, and then give them as much information as possible. They said one issue is that people call and they just say, they might give them a little information, but they want as much detail as possible because the Attorney General says it is a challenge to go after all these cases. After all, they've had 27,000 contacts that they've made, so they need as much detail as possible so they can really go after these people.
And of course, never approach anyone or try to make any sort of citizen arrest or anything
Absolutely.
like that. All right, Mahia, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to toss it back over to Ash.
Thanks, guys. And as coronavirus cases on the mainland surge, teachers in Florida are taking legal action to stop in-person classes from starting next month. Chris Martinez has more.
Florida is still planning to open schools next month, even though the number of new coronavirus cases topped 10,000 Monday for the 10th time in 11 days. The state's largest teachers union is now suing to keep schools closed. It says parents, students, and teachers are entitled to, quote, a lawful and safe reopening.
It is ludicrous to think that now, when the fire is even hotter, when the buildings are really burning, that we would take our children out of these protective bubbles that we've created.
But the Trump administration believes schools can reopen safely if people follow social distancing guidelines.
The most important thing is what we do outside of schools before we reopen to lower the transmission rate. The government has a role, but I want people to understand we as individuals have a role too to do what we can, and that includes wearing face coverings.
Most schools here in California are not reopening this fall. Los Angeles County now has more than 2,000 people hospitalized with COVID-19. That's an all-time high.
County officials trace the spike to the July 4th holiday weekend.
It will take approximately 2 to 3 weeks between when someone is first exposed until they test positive. As people spend time in their communities and socialize with people who aren't in their household, we will continue to see a higher positive rate.
New York and several other states in the Northeast are still showing signs of progress. The Statue of Liberty is now open to visitors for the first time since March. Chris Martinez, CBS News, Los Angeles.
For the first time since April, President Trump held a press briefing at the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Let's listen in to a bit of what he had to say.
And again, the vaccines are coming, and they're coming a lot sooner than anyone thought possible, by years. If you look at the old system and look at the new system, I think by years. The China virus is a vicious and dangerous illness, but we've learned a great deal about it and who it targets. We are in the process of developing a strategy that's going to be very, very powerful. We've developed them as we go along. Some areas of our country are doing very well. Others are doing less well. It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Something I don't like saying about things, but that's the way it is. It's what we have. You look over the world, it's all over the world.
New at noon, we have new information about the abuse allegations that the former showrunner of Hawaii Five-0 is facing. Here's Lacey Denise with those details.
There are new details on the alleged workplace abuses by former CBS producer Peter Lenkov. He ran reboots of Hawaii Five-0, Magnum P.I., and MacGyver. MacGyver star Lucas Till tells Vanity Fair that he was suicidal at one point after receiving verbal abuse, bullying, and body shaming from Lenkov. Sarah Goldfinger, a producer on the Hawaii Five-0 reboot, says Lenkov would scream at her regularly on the phone during her 50-minute commute home. She says Lenkov's tantrums were not creative freakouts or normal displays of stress, but says this was, quote, inappropriate hostility and unacceptable workplace behavior. This was abuse. Lenkov's lawyer has denied the allegations. He told Vanity Fair that Lenkov denies threatening Goldfinger's job or engaging in any verbal tirades at any time, adding that Lenkov was a fan of her work and the job situation ultimately didn't work out. After he was fired earlier this month, Lenkov said in a statement that he was deeply sorry and the work environment he ran was not what his colleagues deserved. You can read the full piece on Vanity Fair. It's titled, "This Was Abuse, the Fall of a CBS Showrunner." For This Is Now, I'm Lacey Denise.
And to weather news now, forecasters are closely monitoring Tropical Storm Douglas, which is far east of the state right now. The National Weather Service just got an update on the storm's track. And for more on that, we're going to hear from meteorologist John Bravender.
Douglas is still a tropical storm right now. It's expected to still develop, eventually becoming a hurricane, possibly later today or tonight. The track has shifted a bit northward, which puts Hawaii more in the crosshairs. But this far out in time, there's still naturally a large degree of uncertainty with where it could eventually go. So our forecast goes out 5 days. So as it approaches that endpoint, that day 5 forecast, we'll be getting closer. But even 5 days out, our average error is 200 miles. It's just a reference or a guide for where it's expected to go. It's hard to say exactly where it could go, whether it would be a direct impact to the islands or near miss, have some outside impacts. We want people to take this opportunity to prepare. We're just getting into the start of our peak of hurricane season. So Douglas may be the first of additional tropical cyclones. So take this as a reminder to go out, develop an emergency kit, have supplies on hand for Douglas or anything else that might come during hurricane season.
Good reminder to hear from the National Weather Service. Let's get more on our weather. Let's turn it on over to Guy Hoggy.
How's it on this Tuesday? A light wind weather pattern is moving over the state. There's not a whole lot of moisture out there. This morning, though, there are some showers moving into those windward areas. Showers are of the light variety. We're not expecting a washout. Now, we do have a light trade wind breeze, but the winds will slowly be easing up. We'll likely get sea breezes by this afternoon, and that means afternoon clouds, a few afternoon showers, maybe even some spinners through tomorrow. So this light wind weather pattern today will create higher than normal humidity levels. And with all the sunshine early, temperatures running to about 90 degrees. Also with the light winds, surf conditions will be very nice this morning. Maybe with some onshore sea breezes by midday, turning offshore again. The other significant thing out in the surf, very fat high tide this afternoon could lead to some coastal flooding. And now the surf's going to be 1 to 3 with no significant swells coming for the next couple of days. So we've got light winds today and tomorrow, afternoon showers, higher humidity levels. And those trade winds coming back in by Thursday, holding firm into the weekend. We'll have more details on air and online.
Thanks, Guy. And now it's time for From the Feeds, what we found on the internet. Now, I love wine with cheese and crackers, but I've never tried this before. For the second straight summer, Cheez-Its is selling box sets with house wine, this time pairing the white cheddar variation with the house wine rosé. Last year, the original Cheez-It was paired with a house red. According to the company, the tasty combo is, quote, perfect for socially distant happy hours, virtual book clubs, or a cozy night on the couch watching reality TV with friends. The limited edition box set goes for $30 and is available only at originalhousewine.com.
I don't know if that's going to be better. Well, you know, it has wine, it will be. But I really like the extra toasted Cheez-Its. That's my favorite.
I've never had those.
Oh, they're like a little burn to them. Really good stuff. All right, let's get to some good news. Come on, it's been a busy day.
That's right. Here at home, so those mass food distribution events have slowed down, but there's still a lot of people in need. Casey Lund has more on the Show Aloha Challenge.
Yeah, guys, the Show Aloha Challenge has done some really significant things for our community. Of course, earlier this year, we took you to their big distribution at Aloha Stadium. Now, trying to focus in on people who really, really need some support right now. And today, a really special effort. They're delivering 1,000 boxes, fresh produce, protein to Hawaii's kupuna and other people that need some food assistance right now, people that are still out of work. And I want to bring Mike Gangloff with me here. And we have a very significant donation here from Hawaii Dental Service, Mike, $145,000. This is a really big deal, and you know your crew here with Mira Construction, they're hard at work getting those boxes loaded, ready to go out today. What do you want to say about HDS, and how are you going to use some of this money to help people?
Just phenomenal from HDS stepping up in this way in such a big way. We're going to take this money and we're going to help the outer islands. We're going to help Kona, Hilo, Molokai, Lanai, Kauai. And we're gonna do 17,000 hot meals delivered to seniors. On top of that, we're gonna do 1,100 care packages of toothbrush and toothpaste to those seniors as well too. So this is phenomenal. I want to thank Mark Yamakawa, President and CEO of HDS Foundation. I appreciate you, Mark. Thank you very much. I want to thank Cherie, Director. She's been crucial in getting this thing together and getting this funding. I want to thank you guys so much. You have no idea what you're going to do for the community, the outer islands. Thank you so much, HDS.
Mike, when you think about HDS, your other partners, Prometheus Construction, Meals on Wheels, St. Francis Healthcare, Kapuna Food Security Coalition, Eckhart Brandes Inc., tell me a little bit about how that makes you feel to see so many different people from so many industries, nonprofits, coming together to really stand up for the community.
Yeah, you're gonna make me cry when you talk like that. It's crazy, Casey, for have the community just step up and put their problems on the side. And these companies and these organizations step up and do everything they can to help out wherever they can. It's just phenomenal to see the teamwork.
And if you're sitting at home and you're wondering what you can do, a lot of us maybe can't do a whole lot, but one simple thing you can do, you get a pretty cool shirt out of the deal. Tell me again about this Show Aloha Challenge shirt and what this represents food-wise.
This represents 2 meals. This is a next level t-shirt. It's a great t-shirt. It's not a cheap one. It's a good t-shirt. That's 2 meals to our senior. Go to showalohachallenge.com and that's where you can donate $5, $10, $20, $100. Buy a shirt, give a meal. Help us help them.
Very good. Mike Gangloff, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your crew from Mira Construction, all the other partners that have come together really to do a lot for the families that are still very much suffering right now because of the pandemic, because of the job loss. A really difficult time. Great to see people coming together to help them out. Again, showalohachallenge.com. I'm Casey Lund for This Is Now.
Thanks, Casey. And speaking of showing aloha, after helping Iolani Palace, the fashion brand Iolani is giving back again. Now, the company launched the Aloha for Aloha program to help more nonprofits. It's a buy one, give one campaign. So for every Iolani brand item purchased, another will be donated, and they will go towards the Institute for Human Services and the YWCA of Oahu.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for This Is Now. As you could see, a lot of news today, and we're going to recap it all on our digital platforms and today at 5. Stay safe.